Hey, how's it going, guys? It's Nate here. And I'll just start this video off by admitting that it's been a good while since our last love letter to the Skyrim modding community. Around a month or so. And in between all of that time, quite a lot has happened within the Elder Scrolls scene. And I'm particularly excited to share with you all what I've been playing over the last few weeks. So, now's your chance. Grab a glass of your finest Colovian brandy, throw a log on the fire, and relax, as we jump right into another edition of Skyrim Mods. Oh, actually, before we begin, a quick word from today's sponsor, a brand that I'm very excited to work with and trust greatly. Me! Please leave a like and, I don't know, check out my Instagram or something. Anyway, with that out of the way, and without any further ado, let's do further. We'll start off with one of the more recent, and I suppose smaller, though I use that word very loosely, mods featured in today's video. Authentic Legion by Nordwar UA. So, you might recall that in our last Immersive Mods video, I featured a mod called Iron Legion by the same author. It introduced a new set of iron armor based off of the Imperial attire featured in the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion that we could craft. For an armor mod, it was very well made, and I think gave players a really appreciated sense of Oblivion nostalgia. Well, Authentic Legion is Nordwar's sequel to that previous work. Released just a couple of days ago on October 9th, Authentic Legion integrates not one, not two, but 6 new armor sets, all inspired by the Imperial armor style of the Elder Scrolls 4. The new models and textures look absolutely stunning, and come in resolutions as high as 4096 by 2048. As you can tell on screen, each set has a very different appearance, and they also vary in terms of stats as well. In progressing order in terms of their armor rating, the new sets introduced are Scout Armor, Infantry Armor, Horseman's Armor, Legate Armor, General's Armor, exclusively worn by General Tullius, and Penitus Oculatus Armor. Any of these, with the obvious exception of Tullius's custom garb, can be crafted at a forge with the appropriate smithing skill, or just simply looted from Imperial Legionnaires, as the mod's new armor sets will replace the old vanilla games, and spawn on members of the Empire's faction. Furthermore, Authentic Legion also throws in a number of new shield designs, sword retextures, and cloaks to the mix, just in case everything else wasn't already enough. Nordwar UA has consistently been producing some of the highest quality armor mods on the Nexus over the past year, and Authentic Legion is definitely one of his best. So, whether you're playing on Skyrim Special Edition or Skyrim Original, you should definitely give it a go. Next on our list, I'd like to talk a little bit about Holds, the City Overhaul. This is by no means a brand new mod, however, it's one of Skyrim's classics, so to speak. And recently, it got a pretty major update that I think gives me the excuse that I've always needed to finally cover it on the channel. So, as you probably are already aware, towns and cities in the Elder Scrolls 5 have always been a bit, well, just ridiculously small and unrealistic. There are entire whole capitals that feel more like tiny hamlets, lacking any level of population density, or even basic things like walls. Enter Holds, the City Overhaul, a mod aiming to radically overhaul the population centers of Skyrim. It accomplishes this in a few ways. Some cities that were already on the bigger-ish side, it merely adds on to, building additional structures, or even adding entire new areas to make them feel even bigger. Solitude has a whole new district near its entrance, and her docks have been totally revamped to feel like an entire new city has been built right underneath it. Other towns and settlements have just been entirely remade, built back up from scratch. Folkreath, supposedly the great capital of the hold that bears its name, is really just a collection of 12 buildings in the base game. 12! Now, it's been reimagined as a truly great walled city, with somewhere around triple the structure count, and architecture that reflects the region. Other cities that have been completely redesigned include Dawnstar and Winterhold. Though, as mentioned, virtually every location with people in it has seen some major improvements. Holds also goes so far as to create some totally new settlements that will now be peppered across Skyrim, largely based off of locations and settings mentioned in books, but never found in the game itself. Populating all of these newly expanded cities and fresh towns and villages are a humongous cast of new characters as well. Admittedly, they're mostly just filler NPCs, meant to keep the world feeling bustling and alive. I mean, the new and improved Falkreath would feel pretty weird if it still only had a dozen NPCs living in it. But all of these characters do keep to a schedule, and typically also perform some jobs in the day, giving them some personality, and oftentimes a bit of utility too. Holds was originally released all the way back in 2012. However, since then, the mod author has been continuously updating and expanding upon the project. It's effectively been being developed for over 7 years now, and its most recent patch, which just dropped in October, saw it overhaul around 20 more minor, isolated locations, such as Anissa's cabin, Miko's shack, Angie's camp, and so many others. So, Holds has kind of expanded from just a city mod to really just a location improvement project in general. As a package, I think this is one of those must-try Skyrim mods, if not just to see how bustling and alive Skyrim can get. It's come a long way since its launch so long ago, and presumably is only going to continue improving. Suffice it to say, it easily earns my recommendation. Coming in at number 3. Oh, this one is something else. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Daggerfall, the mod that sets out to allow players to experience the main questline of the Elder Scrolls II Daggerfall in the engine of the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Now, this is an insanely ambitious project. Originally, when he began work on this endeavor, now well over 2 years ago, the mod author, Oricus0, wanted to recreate the entirety of the Elder Scrolls II, remaking literally everything. However, he eventually realized that such an effort would require a nearly impossible amount of resources. So, Oricus and a small team of helpers and contributors instead set out to focus on reimagining Daggerfall's main questline, some of its unique armors and weapons, and its important location/world space, rather than everything altogether. The whole mod is tailored around allowing you to play through Daggerfall's main questline in as true to form fashion as possible without compromise, allowing you to meet and interact with all of the same characters, who now, for the first time, are fully voiced and very well acted, travel to all of the same dungeons, face off against the same foes, and do so all on the much better looking and more stable engine that Skyrim has to offer. Hundreds of new models, textures, AI packages, and other assets have been compiled together to make Daggerfall come to life, and it's truly brilliant. Daggerfall's storyline, for those of you who are unaware, is a good bit different than the traditional Elder Scrolls narrative that we've grown used to. You don't start off as a random captured prisoner with an unspecified background that you're free to imagine. Instead, while you do of course get to customize your character, you actually start off as a close confidant of Emperor Uriel Septim VII, who sends you to the province of High Rock, specifically the territory controlled by the Kingdom of Daggerfall, to investigate the death of one of his close allies, Daggerfall's former king, Lysandius, who passed away under mysterious circumstances, and now whose ghost is supposedly haunting the region with an undead army. Long story short, your journey will lead you down quite the rabbit hole, as your character finds themselves entrenched in the politics of regional nobility, and their mad quest for a certain ancient artifact. Again, the entirety of this story will be available for you to immerse yourselves in, and then a little some extra. But the mod isn't without a few limitations. For one, the size of the world has been greatly reduced from what we remember in 1996. Original Daggerfall famously had a procedurally generated map that was so large it's been called bigger than the entire country of England. Seriously, the place was huge. Daggerfall, as you might imagine, isn't procedurally generated. Instead, the world space is around 2/3 the size of Skyrim, which is still on the big side of things as far as mods are concerned, and still does fit in pretty much all of Daggerfall's important locations and settlements, and then some. The major towns and dungeons you remember are all still here, but it's not quite as infinite as the original. Furthermore, side quests and extras have largely been ignored for the sake of focusing as much attention as possible on that main quest line. But that said, the author has signaled an intention to eventually begin filling in everything he left out, now that he's released a version. So over the coming months, and maybe even years, it's likely that Daggerfall will continue to grow. Even as it is though, it's an amazing mod with a remarkable attention to detail. The team really nailed Daggerfall's geometric style, and the fact that they went so far as to handcraft the game's unique enemies blew me away. Daggerfall is available now for Skyrim Special Edition on the Nexus. For 4th spot, speaking of Daggerfall remakes, this is just too good of an opportunity not to bring up Daggerfall Unity. So, Daggerfall Unity isn't actually a mod for Skyrim, so its placement in a video like this is a bit more difficult to justify, but I definitely need to talk about it. What Daggerfall Unity is a full-on, total remake of the Elder Scrolls II Daggerfall in the Unity engine for modern PCs. Everything has been recreated. The main quests, the side quests, the core mechanics, the procedurally generated map, the soundtrack. It is, for all intents and purposes, a full-fledged Daggerfall remake, currently available now for Windows, Mac, and Linux, all for free. Anyone who's ever tried to get the original 96 version of Daggerfall to run on a modern system can tell you that it is quite the nightmare. The game itself was pretty buggy when it originally released to begin with, but it's so not optimized for present-day PCs that these days trying to run it and expecting a smooth experience is a total fool's errand. Daggerfall Unity, however, is based on the very well-optimized Unity engine, and doesn't carry any of the same burdens. It's as smooth as butter to run, and doesn't require hours of toiling around with .ini files. Though, something I think you guys will be even more impressed by is the fact that Daggerfall Unity also supports mods, and has a fairly active community. And this, I think, changes everything. It's no secret that the original game just doesn't look very pretty. But the right mod list can make Daggerfall Unity look really good. Far better than Bethesda likely ever imagined. The project just entered its public alpha release testing back in August, and isn't much of a pain to install. If you're interested, in the description down below, I'll include links to a tutorial or two so you can get started. There's still some updates the developers are planning, and countless mods being worked on, so the game is poised to only improve going forward. Overall, I think it's safe to say that 2019 has been a very good year if you're a Daggerfall fan. Whether you want to experience the story of it in the engine of Skyrim, or the full-on game in the engine of Unity, well, now those are things that are finally possible. And finally, last on our list, how could we conclude a video like this without a healthy dose of spooky? Well, never fear. Or, well, actually, do fear, because Malstrom is here. Malstrom is a humongous, fully voiced quest and follower mod by Noct77 that will take players on quite the eerie adventure. You start the primary quest after venturing to a strange camp on Skyrim's northern shores that was allegedly set up by a wealthy merchant who's recently disappeared. Inspecting the encampment reveals that before being declared missing, said trader apparently set sail to a mysterious cavern deep in the Sea of Ghosts. Follow his tracks and you'll eventually find yourself at the entrance of this great, frigid cave. And it's here that the overwhelming majority of the mod's questline takes place. It's an insanely large dungeon, loaded with puzzles, enemies that are creepy as Oblivion, and quite a bit more. Your exploration of this great dungeon will reveal horrifying supernatural forces at play, and you'll quickly realize that your mission down here is far bigger than merely locating a single merchant. I don't want to spoil too much, as I think I had the most fun learning the narrative for myself, but it's largely based around Norse mythology. So, not necessarily a lore-friendly Skyrim experience, but it still suits Skyrim's themes quite well. And the way that the author structures the quests is reminiscent of older RPGs that didn't do so much hand-holding. Investigation is something you're now expected to do on your own time, and quest markers can no longer be relied upon to simply navigate your objectives for you. I was explaining it to a friend of mine over on Discord, and he described it as a thinking man's mod, which I thought was both hilarious and somewhat accurate. I personally spent around an hour and a half to maybe 2 hours just to complete the primary quest. However, thanks to a handful of branching choices and side objectives offered, there's definitely a lot of replay value. But this new questline is only half of how this mod markets itself. It's also presented as a follower mod as well, which it absolutely is. Depending on the choices you make throughout your time in this cave, you'll emerge with one of two different followers. One being a young girl you find in the cavern, and the other being this lizard-like girl that you'll learn more about throughout the storyline. The mod definitely seems to push you in the direction of getting the lizard girl as a follower, but again, I'll leave that for you to figure out on your own. The way Malstrom gets your heart racing isn't through a use of pop-ups or anything to that effect. Instead, it's the creepy environments that will make you feel nervous, and the weird mysteriousness behind the enemies you face. Being constantly both nervous and confused really does that to you. Having just dropped on September 22nd, Malstrom already has over 5,000 downloads on its Special Edition version alone. It's easily one of the more popular mods of the month, and honestly, I think it is criminally underrated. My personal suspicion is that over the next few weeks and months and heck, maybe even years, this mod is really gonna grow to become one of the better known presences in the community. But until then, Malstrom is available on both Skyrim versions on PC, and well, actually, nowhere else. But hey, it's on PC. Anyway, with that, we are going to wrap up. 5 of the most impressive Skyrim mods to have recently dropped. Or, well, I guess 4 mods and 1 external game, but still, leave me alone. Anyway, thank you all so much for stopping by. I do hope you all enjoyed. As always, like ratings are very much appreciated. An extra special thank you to patrons and channel members, and I hope to see you all in my next video. Peace out, everyone.